what's going on, guys? The Comics Kid 2099 here. I am here to examine another issue of the X-Men. Today, we will be examining X-Men issue 9, written by Stan Lee, with pencils by Jack Kirby, inks by Chick Stone, and lettering by Sam Rosen. This issue has the X-Men in Europe. They are actually in transit on a giant boat, and the boat is about to hit a gigantic iceberg when Cyclops secretly uses his optic blast to shatter the iceberg, and then he tells the X-Men that Professor Xavier wanted them to go to where he is. We saw in the previous issue that he was somewhere in the Balkans searching for someone named Lucifer, and he wants them to stand by in case he is not able to defeat Lucifer, and then he wants them to fight Lucifer. And then Professor Xavier, he is able to find Lucifer's underground lair, where he sees that Lucifer has a gigantic bomb that is capable of destroying an entire continent, and it is connected to Lucifer's own heartbeat. So if Professor Xavier does anything at all to harm Lucifer in any way, chances are he's going to be destroying an entire continent. Meanwhile, the Avengers, they are seeking out this source of evil that Thor has somehow sensed with his hammer, and then this guy, he's just driving along, and the Avengers, they're all telling him, get out of here, this place is no place for you, you need to just get on out of here, and they're not very nice about it. And then this guy, he drives on, and then he runs into the X-Men, and then he's like, oh, there's monsters, and so then Angel thinks it's a good idea to take off his shirt and fly away, and that scares the guy even more, and he says, I'm going back to Ohio. And then pretty much Professor Xavier tells the X-Men, hey, don't let the Avengers come down here and fight Lucifer, because I can't tell you right now why, just don't let it happen. So then we have a very typical misunderstanding between two superhero teams here, where the Avengers, they know that there's something evil going on, and they want to stop it, but the X-Men say, hey, we can't let you do that, we can't let you go any further. And this is weird, because Iron Man has already met the Angel. This issue was cover dated, I believe, March of 1965, I think, and there's an issue of Tales of Suspense where Angel meets Iron Man, and that was like January of 64, I think. So by this point, at least one of the Avengers has already met one of the X-Men, but still, we have a pointless fight here, and then after the X-Men delay the Avengers a little bit, Professor Xavier is able to put Lucifer to sleep, and then he tells the Avengers, hey, you guys can leave, and they're like, okay, see you guys later, and then the X-Men come down and they disarm Lucifer's bomb, and then Lucifer wakes up, and then he says, okay, you and I are even. Since I took away the use of your legs, Professor X, and then you took away my bomb that I spent 10 years making, you and I are even. And Professor X says, no, you just lost 10 years. I lost the use of my legs for the rest of my life. We are not even. And so Lucifer walks away, and then the X-Men are thinking, well, maybe someday Professor X will tell us how he lost his legs here. And that's how the issue ends. This is a weird issue. For one thing, I seem to recall that Lucifer was just a done-in-one villain, but I also seem to recall getting more information about how Professor Xavier lost his legs. But here, it seems like they're hinting that we're going to get more of Lucifer in future issues. I don't know if we ever will, or if that's something that they hinted at and then decided not to go down that route. But we do get hints that Lucifer was responsible for Xavier losing his legs somehow, but we don't get any explicit details on that story in this issue. Also, this is, I believe, one of the first times that the X-Men meets characters from the Marvel Universe as a whole. I did mention that issue of Tales of Suspense where Angel met Iron Man, but other than that, this is one of the first times where the X-Men meets other characters from the Marvel Universe, in their own title at least. I don't know what was going on in some of the other books, but this is also one of the first times where the X-Men is seen as a threat by other people from the Marvel Universe. The Avengers, they're trying to stop this bad guy that Thor magically somehow knows about, and then the X-Men are saying, we can't let you do that. So to the Avengers, these guys look like a threat. They look like they could be working for Lucifer, and the Avengers are trying to stop this guy, and the X-Men are trying to stop them, so of course there's going to be a big superhero fight on their hands. And honestly, Professor X saying, hey, you guys need to make sure that Lucifer doesn't get harmed, I can't tell you why, that's really stupid. This is one of those things I've mentioned before, kind of like the TV show Three's Company, where there's some misunderstanding, and that propels the entire conflict for the issue. That's what's going on here. All Professor X had to do really quickly was say, hey, Lucifer has a bomb, it's connected to his heart, we can't harm him. And then the X-Men just had to say the same thing to the Avengers. Now, admittedly, you could have the Avengers say, we don't know who you guys are, we don't believe you, we think that maybe you're working for Lucifer, and then you could still have a fight, and then Professor X could contact them telepathically and say, hey, these are my students, and they're telling the truth. And then Thor could say, hey guys, I believe them. And then it's like, okay, well, if Thor vouches for you, then it's okay. But the way that it happens here, where the X-Men say, we can't tell you why, but we can't let you go any further, that's a little bit dumb, and we will see as the decades roll on, as we get into the late 70s and 80s, when superheroes do have to fight each other because fans just love it when superheroes fight each other, it makes a little bit more sense when they do get in a fight. In this case, it makes absolutely no sense at all that the X-Men and the Avengers have to fight each other, and then when they do fight, it's for the flimsiest of reasons. Also, we don't really get a whole lot of further character development here. We basically are just touching base on some of the stuff that we've already seen in previous issues. Jean Grey is thinking to herself about how she's in love with Scott, but because he's the leader of the team, he doesn't have time for romance, is what she says. And then we get to see that Iceman, he's still... actually, he doesn't really do anything goofy in this issue. Beast kind of acts a little goofy a couple points. When he's handing Cyclops a cold drink, Angel says something like, "Why do you always have to be a show-off?" Because he's handing him the drink with his feet. But Iceman, I was thinking he had done something really goofy here, but he doesn't really do anything that goofy in this issue. But the X-Men are reunited with Professor Xavier here because he was gone for a few issues. Last issue, and I believe the issue before, Professor X was not there. So now he's back, so we will get to see what his relationship with the X-Men is going to be like now that they have graduated. Officially, they are now graduates. They are no longer his students, but now that he's coming back, I'm very curious if it's just going to revert to how it was before they graduated, because I do have memories of them still being with Professor X, still at the X-Mansion, and things basically being the same as they were before they graduated. But I've had memories of stuff happening in the series, and then I remember it differently than how it actually happened, so we will see how that progresses in the future. But other than that, I don't really have much more to say here. We have one human being here. Actually, we have three human beings here who are not X-Men or Avengers or Lucifer. We have one guy who the Avengers terrorize, and then he runs away, and then when he sees that Angel has wings, then he runs away again. And he's not really anti-mutant, he's just terrified out of his mind because the Avengers were just terrorizing this guy, and then he sees that Angel has wings, and so he says, "I just gotta get out of here." As far as he's concerned, everything in the Balkans is just really weird. And then also you got these other two people on the boat that the X-Men are on, and they see Cyclops kind of staggering after he used his optic blast. They didn't see him use his optic blast, but they see him staggering, and they're like, "Oh, he should have taken some medicine. He's a little bit seasick. Oh, that's so funny. Teenagers are so weak." And they're not really anti-mutant either. They're just old people who are making fun of teenagers. So we don't really get to see a whole lot of anti-mutant bigotry in this issue like we had been seeing in a couple of issues here lately. But other than that, not a whole lot to report in this issue. I'm assuming that we will see Lucifer again at least one more time. I'm 99% sure that we did get to see Professor X lose his legs in a flashback of some kind. I just don't remember how soon it was after this issue. But anyway, this is one of our other issues without the Brotherhood. We had like 4 issues in a row where Magneto and the Brotherhood fought the X-Men, and then last issue we had Eunice the Untouchable, who was kind of sort of connected to the Brotherhood. We have Mastermind there, but we didn't have the rest of the Brotherhood. This issue mentions Magneto's telepathy, or his ability to astrally project. It mentions that, but other than that, we don't have any reference to Magneto or the Brotherhood here. And then next issue, we're also not going to have Magneto or the Brotherhood. At least, I don't think we are. So anyway, it seems like we're now going through a stretch of non-Brotherhood issues where we went through like 4 issues where we had them, and now we're going to have a few issues where we don't have them. So anyway, that's all that I have to say about X-Men issue 9. Like I said, not a lot to report here. X-Men fought the Avengers. The Avengers didn't really trust the X-Men, but then they let them do their thing and they walk away. So that's all I have to say. So in the meantime, consider this issue examined.